One of the things that people at Marvel Comics really like is they like the element of villains who unmask themselves in the end to make sure that their victim knows who is responsible for their suffering and fear and injury. Well, when it comes to the people who are in the Green Party working with media, although they resort to paranormal communication to make sure I know who they are and what they do, they're usually more chickenly than how brazen they were when they murdered my father and put the German Green Party on his reverse side of his obituary. And in addition, they talk about injecting people and use the masked man's name of Don't Know Who, which encrypts Dawn, Ono, and HUE for the hue, the color change. Now, what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about are some things that I don't go into in my other videos. To explain why Baruch Fishoff, the great ingenieur of Gregor Morgan's plantation, Carnegie Mellon University, where the Trumpy tuned Putinees coagulate in Pittsburgh with the help of Pittsburgh Penguins dacoitery, um, called my work disaggregated. It's because I was overloaded. I mean, you don't do the sort of things that were done to me as a child. And my consciousness was still forming. I was also, of course, afraid in the way that children are more existentially afraid. They haven't had the experience of learning about life enough to cool their fear of when there's threats. You know, the children are the people who suffer the most from the anguish. So the callousness that developed around me came from the Israeli community, and we now know Yoko Ono is callous, horribly callous individual, sadist who has killed children in her rampages. So, what I wanted to talk about is some of the things that were important to the situation that I was in as a white public high school student in Pittsburgh who had fallen between the cracks because of the military intelligence operations. The Corals hated that I believed life was to be lived. They believed that life was to sacrifice on the battlefield to protect others. And they absolutely hated me that I didn't feel the same way. Hated. They made a lifelong lesson of surreal and sickening um, mutilation to demonstrate their ideas. And nobody has ever stepped forward to help me because of the involvement of the Beatles in the background. Now, there's always going to be a blackout on my work from Thorol's King of England because I have proven that Lennon stepped out. He wasn't killed. They got so good at their game. Ian Fleming, D.W. Griffith, P.D. Wyspensky, Blas Sanders, Stephen King. These people got so good at their game that they staged the virtual reality death and made everybody believe it, a Houdini show, which was long in the making. They began thinking about it in World War One, and they called it Casper. It's a fourth dimensional invisible arm doing things. We've detected it in public schools Commonwealth Administration, Congress, and called it hybrid warfare, hybrid zania. It's from the Leapfrog oligarchs. It has Rudy Giuliani scurrying through the tunnels of Trumpy-Toon headquarters in Mar-a-Lago, carrying off, you know, copious top secret documents to their friends in North Korea and so forth, making exchange values in torture, humiliation, which I was because I came from the OSS community. This purchase bought to trade in an ordeal, which involved the Kennedy assassinations. They've repeated that to make it clear. So some of these peripheral issues pertain to the Heaven and Hell Odyssey, a book I was writing as a recovery trauma care refugee when my father evacuated me to Raleigh, North Carolina, out of the frying pan into the fire, as they say, which was called The Heaven and Hell Odyssey. It was a novel I wanted to write. It's been ruined by Peter Gabriel and Robert Shrupp. There's nothing I can do really to salvage it. And also, I wanted to talk about affirmative action. The level of debate in civics was the norm in Pittsburgh. I mean, I took a stand in Ruth Hammer's class against Michael Todd's pitch for Nixon, I believe it was, promoting Shirley Chisholm, which made me the enemy. And of course, the science sheet that was brought by the principal's office to justify torturing me and terrorizing me involves such things as Carmen Calusi's claim that Gelmini told him that if you pull a fireman's fire alarm, a fake fire alarm, you would get a gelatin on your hand that shined in the light and you would be caught. So when they forced me to swallow LSD, that they poisoned with a sarin, it was so I would be caught for having imitated John Lennon as they were promoting it to be same. Really, they tortured me and forced me. I was in terror. I was absolutely in terror. I didn't want to do it. They forced me to do it. But this was their style, and Trumpy-Toon gets up and says anybody who smokes drugs should be eliminated by act of Congress. And Joe Biden evidently goes along with this because he stood still all through the Obama crusade when I was being used by CRT, critical race theory, as a sacrificial totem of the white man. Nelson Harrison's idea at the University of Pittsburgh, evidently, where the Shulman gang set me up with an Indian woman who revealed later that she was gotten a job teaching by arranged marriage. She didn't tell me she was married. She talked to me about a roommate. I assumed there was another girl. So the Franklin Graham crowd and the Blacko honchos of Africana had me where they wanted me. They had me as a symbol of two virgins' pussy ball. And they were after the symbol of life, the sacred superior, the mother superior, Midori Gota. And Ichiro Suzuki was in on this. Part of this shows that CRT is a reaction against affirmative action. It's a reaction against common sense. It's a reaction against normative Commonwealth democratic processes because they're pushing merit. As like Yusu Andor comes prancing from Senegal saying, you're not inherently nonviolent if you try to protect children being pushed in the gas chambers with your fists. So Amnesty International has a right to your Mellon bank account. This is the sort of reasoning processes that Amnesty International put on, saying I had no right to investigate the prior meditations of the AIDS attack. They were dribbling the ball around, AIDS, nothing. AIDS started AIDS, nothing. Could have saved John Lennon and then have some COVID, sissy ball. And this was their, maniacal proof of rape, they said, was virginity. And there's an image I have of Reagan from a film where he's sitting next to a swastika that's under the U.S. and says rather else he's with this guy who lived with Houdini. Lazarus is like Lazarus back from the dead, Houdini. Franklin Graham uses that name for someone he calls Hitler in his book. So I put it up in Facebook, and they misunderstand. They say, "Oh, you're trying to promote a swastika," and they ban me until it gets explained to them. Please look more closely. In my letter, she was, being very promiscuous with me, but we weren't making love. And she taunted me afterwards. Why should you get another chance? I said, "You saying I should have raped you." It's like, why would you promote a swastika, Reagan? Why would you promote rape, Leslie? And then they pounced and lynched me, tortured me, and raped Cersei before they murdered her, and did a lot of things like rape my death advocate. So you see the swath of critical race theories, reaction against common sense. But affirmative action doesn't mean, like they like to make it look like if you're affirmative action, you're presuming that the white has more merit than the black, and that the black, it's not that you're saying that the black person should be pampered. It's not nothing of the kind. It's not even that merit has to be um, deracialized. The merits are the same, and one is being put down because they're black. I mean, that happens, that's true, but that's not the essence of affirmative action. The essence of affirmative action is remedial action. The person has sufficient qualifications for the job. You understand? Can you comprehend? Is your intellect sufficiently conservative that you can see the truth? That remedial action is called for because of a past history of exclusion. We're trying to equalize access, have a more equitable society so people work together more honorably. It's not about the Peter principle. It's not about pushing people into a position where they stay because they're incompetent. It's not about promoting people into the position of incompetence. That happens across race lines. That's real. That's not what affirmative action is. Affirmative action is sufficient qualifications, recognition of sufficient qualifications for remedial action. So the Heaven and Hell Odyssey, they will say, was all about white people living on a spacey planet, playing music, and then being undermined by capitalist society and mind jesters and rock stars and evil people with machine guns. It's something like that, is true. But the white factor in the imagination of the child was because of the um, first family of the Heaven Odyssey was based on my perceptions of the lost cause of a family. My father had rescued me from the horrible city of Pittsburgh for a semester, and I had some time to shape my thoughts of idealism. But because of what had happened, the way I'd been tortured, I couldn't do it in this world. I had to invent a world. I said the moon had been our sister planet once upon a time, that sort of thing. And but there was not. I remember the names of the black drummer from Genesis, Chester Thompson. I cheered him. I had nothing against. It would have been wonderful to have him on um, in the Menla. So this is absurdity that comes as a meal ticket for Pino Gabriel. He sells some, like when there's this image that George Monbiot puts out. George Monbiot puts out this image of an aristocrat. He's in a headdress from Buckingham Palace, white, and he's, oh, I'll taste the food of a foreign nation for customs and become culturally competent. And you're supposed to look at it and say, boy, doesn't that make you hate Jimmy Cleary? And this is the mentality that Nelson Harrison brought to the table with the Yoko Ono. and these horrible Israelis who were ripping off the museums, stealing nuclear weapons, killing Palestinians and calling it lawn mowing, and then saying the virginity proves right, so they have to kill Circe Candy and so on. And they've come through my computer bragging about it with their paranormal methods. Now, usually they're, but if any police detective is following, you can see that my computer misspells anything that says "oh" and with an extra "oh." Oh no! I mean, she's signing my computer. But when they murdered my father, they were a little more open about it. They really hammered the face of his obituary. They really backstabbed his obituary. It was really something. That I was the only person who was offended by that. He was senior faculty at the University of Pittsburgh. And now there's a case to be made that he was double crosser who donated me for the Texas school book, but it's not proven. You can't just Oswald rather than Curry, which they're perfectly capable of Oswalding people. They create a narrative after using Ian Fleming and Alan Dulles' Super Intel with the help of NBC, who uploaded down rather what you would rather believe about Dealey Plaza, and conspicuously arranged a super story in the Axis cinema, like the Rather Us swastika over the Reagan under the U.S. The guy Houdini, the Lazarus, the escape artist. After they set it up for a long time, my old videos show you the examples. I have a lot of examples from different films, all telling two virgins pussy balls what they did. There was a eugenic exchange and human trafficking that Mellon Bank and Major League Baseball all got in on and thought it was a cool way to punish the kid who was a metaphor for negligence while promoting the girl who wrote the letter. And so they could get away with COVID. I mean, that's what they were doing, driving around. Started AIDS, not could save John Lennon, have some COVID, quit a bit. That's what they were doing, And so and they call themselves jokers of plastic reality. I mean, it's all in their stuff. It's in their stuff. That's, the conspicuous lack of content in analyzing what they put into the public domain. But usually they're chickenly. They do little, murderously cruel little asides. There ain't no cross burning on your lawn, boy. This is the sort of thing that they're into. But when you look at the KKK that's encrypted in the Court of the Crimson King, it's real. But their theory was the weed all plants and a green party while trampling on a dephite suck, while trampling on a flower. So what they're saying is we take the KKK as a form of merit and be inclusive to yada yada yats from Senegal, who were part of the royalty fixture of the Franklin Graham Lovey-Dove show that Queen Elizabeth put on with Billy Graham, and they come out with Billy Goondorf in the Confederate hat, and the 7-foot tall black man dragging me around by the foot, threatening to kill me if you can't sleep in my house before we move in, which is a Gilgamesh image. They want to crack open the symbol of life. And this is the merit of critical race theory. Critical race theory was all that squish Obama's response to AIDS. But it was impractical. I mean, we went right on bombing the Muslims, right on bombing the Muslims. What did the Muslims really do to us? They didn't do. I think the people in 911 were hirelings of the people who burned down the Jackson Lab. Steinmund, Gullis, Cliff Robertson, Ringo Starr, Yoko Ono, Kim Kardashian, Donald Trump. These are the people who were behind 911. And nothing, but going in, they bomb Syria. And then they slap live at the leapfrog oligarch barbershop of Putin. They just Trump between Putinies have a road show going from the fourth dimension. They're the puppet masters. They smile as the puppets dance. They even sing that garbage. These people are garbage. They don't believe in anything that comes down to human rights. The reason why they selected me said, this boy has no human rights. because my father wrote a book on America's stake in human rights. It's still in print in India. They said if he's going to talk about human rights, therefore he will have no human rights. That's their mentality. And you can't get weasel your way out of it because there's all this evidence. You can look at the back of my father's obituary any day of the week. I can find it in my stuff. You can look at the, you know, letter of Leslie Katz. You can see I was saying, don't incite, you know, the idea that rape is okay. I had an ongoing argument with them about that. But they had wrapped a neuroplasm around my psyche that they called bursting. And you know, if I tried to have a child, I went into seizures because they had vowed that I would never have a child. Because the little boy told them that the OSS traded to Putin and North Korea as a symbol of uh, of Hiroshima. And they had a woman named Shiono representing Sheen and Ono. Because the Catholic workers believe in helping the poor who are worthy poor, the goody goody poor. But the ones who are fallen little kids who get confused and get their asses kicked, they're worms. Get rid of them. And that's where Vince Irene came in with his tapes. They were making tapes of the horrible things that they did to me as a child. They were making tapes of the horrible things that they did to me as a child and calling them TV tapes. This was Jaime Carbonell of Carnegie Mellon University, Vince Irene, Martin Adelman, Penis Gabriel, John Schulman, Martin Sheen, and Andrea Swimmer. And they were all working for a brutal pedophile who broke my sister's ribs, gave me 14 stitches as a little kid, named Donald. Donald, you know, with the extra Ostro for like Ono, Ostro, UB 25, 40. You know, it was all encrypted. You know, Val was his father's name, Val, like Dravo with the needle. VO, Val Ostro, get it? So VO5, they were after the Walrus. It's going to have some abortions for the Ku Klux Klan. They're going to show you what the real morality is. They were laughing. And the Boondocks of Westmoreland County gurgling with the masters like man, the maze, the amazing maze of Maz. You know, and they were trumpy tuning, ripping off the museums. They had some guy named Don Wentworth. Where did it went? What was it worth? Helping Schulman, I believe, rip off the books and stuff like that. And they probably found some of them goodies in the Mar-a-Lago safe. They probably did. Yep. And one of his Schulman's friends was always over at the house of a Trumpy Tune speechwriter, Adam Eisenstadt. And he'd get on the radio, KKA, and say, you know, down out of the radio, he'd say, I'm Abdul the terrorist. He was an Israeli terrorist. He said, I'm Abdul the terrorist from Palestine. No one is innocent. And KKA would freak out and say, we don't talk that way, Abdul. We don't talk that way, Abdul. And when I would report it, they'd say, stop starting rumors about the chosen people. And nobody apologized to me. They tortured me. They poisoned me. They cruelly misused everything. It's a script. They made up their war game. The Major League Baseball goes like this to it. They play this stuff about Roberto Clemente. These people called me. I knew Roberto Clemente. He waved to my sister. I loved Roberto. I just soon heard Roberto as any of the people they claim I heard. It's a big lie. People can't say Lie. Can't Jeannie said lie, 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 lie. She's deaf. She loved me. She's the only person who had the intelligence and the wherewithal and the courage to say they lie about that. They called me when they killed him. And Edgar Martinez comes out and does like this here to them. Come out and say Powell, please, to Ronald Hitler Reagan. In the name of Roberto Clemente, they used the Green Party, Rosa Clemente, to enact their pussy ball war game and then rape a deaf girl who had epilepsy. Roberto would never do that. They're calling it the curse of Roberto. I mean, it's licking chops glee from the truly deranged. The pervert quarters of Seattle were told by Donald Trump, "You got AIDS, so you get the money." That's what they told him. And Yoko Ono was cackling the whole time. You get AIDS, so you get the money. This was the whole spiel, all planned out by these wicked, stupid Yinzers, and they're Israeli. Tickets are odd. And fundamentally, it's all true. You can't do. I'm pouring water on it. They're pouring gas on it by saying John Lennon died. I'm pouring water on it by explaining that John Lennon was in on it. You understand? Try to understand. Look at the evidence. Try to understand what really happened. Ian Fleming and D.W. Griffith got so good at their game that they pulled off an alternative reality, a fake universe, and sold it through American media to everybody. And it's a Trumpy Tune Putinese roadshow from the leapfrog oligarchs working a vision that goes back to the World War I cinema theorists like Blas Sanders and P.D. Ouspensky of the Fourth Way.